As a guy who went to animation school before I became a teacher, I took a lot of history of animation courses. One of the interesting things to note about the evolution of animation is ever since the 90s, cartoons for adults have become more and more acceptable. Shows like Harvey Birdman, Venture Brothers, Archer, and Adventure Time are insanely popular. But some cartoons, like SpongeBob for instance, are kind of hard to put your finger on. Are they meant for kids or are they meant for adults? Some of the jokes in SpongeBob are clearly just meant for adults, and yet the overall tone is kind of juvenile. So the only way I could tell was through the interaction of both audiences. And because of that, I've determined it has to be for kids. Because when Painty the Pirate sings, "Who lives in a pineapple under the sea?" the kids scream, "SpongeBob SquarePants!" But when the adults watching SpongeBob hears, "Who lives in a pineapple under the sea?" they say, "What? Nah, no pineapple on the pizza, man." What? Here it is, the big sequel of 2015, the one we've all been waiting for, Avengers: Age of Ultron. Let's be honest, because let's put things in perspective. The last time we had a SpongeBob movie, Joss Whedon hadn't even directed a film yet. So we get an animated feature, a sequel that is more than a decade in the making. Now I have a huge amount of respect for talented voice actors like Tom Kenny, Clancy Brown, and Bill Fagerbach. Dude, watch the F-bombs. But I can't help be reminded of the Simpsons movie. I respect the cast, I respect the show, but the window for audience demand might have already closed. So you're probably asking, why should I go see this movie? Unless I'm high, strung, and need to relax. Well, if you're ready to relax, shut your brain off, and giggle, this is definitely the right film for you. However, if you're looking to laugh out loud, or you're looking for something you haven't seen in the show before, keep looking. That has a lot to do with the show being around for over 15 years. And again, like The Simpsons, if you're a fan of the show, you've seen it all before. And because of that, the laughs suffer, unless you're high, jacking a train in the Old West. But the humor is really important to address because let's face it, you watch SpongeBob to laugh. And I found that I wasn't really laughing all that much during this film. My theory is the writers did just fine as the film wasn't completely bereft of humor, but two theories come to mind. One, that it was enough humor for a half-an-hour episode and not a feature film. And two, they certainly catered more towards the kids. Don't get me wrong, I get it's supposed to be a kids movie, but with so many animated feature films being able to toe that line, give the adults some laughs. Another aspect that I was disappointed with was the story, and you would think that after 10 years they would probably be saving up something special, something that hadn't been done before. But instead, the plot of SpongeBob Sponge Out of Water centers around Plankton trying to get the Krabby Patty recipe again. Well, kids don't really mind because they have the memory of a goldfish, but come on, how about something for the adults? Something like Antonio Banderas? Truth be told, even Antonio seemed to be there for the kids, which is surprising because kids of this generation probably wouldn't recognize him except for the Spy Kids movies, but his performance really didn't bring anything for the adults. The more I thought about it, what was the last good Banderas movie? The Legend of Zorro? It wasn't a very good sequel. But with the introduction of Mr. Banderas came the best part of the movie, where the sponge is in fact out of water. Evita? No, not a lot of people are into musicals. This movie is really pushing the 3D, but in fact it's only the latter half of the film, when these two-dimensional classic characters come into the real world, that needs to be 3D. However, the computer animation was awesome. But the awesomest part came a little bit earlier than the real world, and yet still used the 3D glasses to the best Kubrick-esque levels of mind-blowing. Especially if you're high. Ness, the Prince of Marijuana. I mean, England show... Damn it! I would love to tell you more about those parts of the movie, but it would give too much about the plot away. However, I will say that those parts were not only a lot of fun to watch, but once again, the handsome Mountie Pharrell made it fun to listen to. This time it wasn't a solo song for him, it was with his kick-ass group NERD, and if you haven't heard Squeeze Me yet, do yourself a favor and listen to it. I have a feeling that if this movie was released in the summer, it would have been a warm weather hit. Instead, it'll just have to settle for being the For the Win. 13th Warrior? That was like 1999. But settle seems to be the key word of this review, and not just for Antonio. What? Banderas films. Once upon a time in Mexico. Ay, que fue en sentido figurado mentándome. What? After waiting this long since the original SpongeBob movie, I wanted more. I expected more. Now I get that this is probably meant for kids, and if you're a parent with young children, they're definitely going to enjoy themselves. But as a dude in his 30s with no kids, I only kinda liked it, and therefore I can't really recommend it to a wide audience. So, it's a burn it. And for all my students watching this review, I don't actually condone drug use. Even though you just said burn it? Poll question, what is your favorite cartoon for adults? As always, leave your answers in the comment section below. Be sure to subscribe to Real School, follow me on Twitter, and of course, if you get anything out of Real School, you can always give a little back. Just click the link and you can become a Real School patron. But until next time, school's out.